Let's take you through the topic that we are focusing as the newsmaker today. Public sector banks may take a hit of 96,484 crore rupees due to the cancellation of coal blocks to power projects. That's the word coming in from the Minister of State for Finance, Jayant Sinha. Now, we're going to discuss what this means for PSU banks and whether the government has thought through a process of helping them overcome what could be the potential NPAs from this kind of hit. To do that, we're joined by our banking editor, of course, Lata Venkatesh, but we also have online Ankit Ladani, banking analyst at SBI Cap Securities. Ankit, I'll give the first word to you in terms of what you make of this number. This number's been bandied around quite often. It's come up in the Supreme Court hearings as well as the potential exposure of public sector banks, to those companies that had managed to get coal block allocations in the last round of allocations over the last 15 years. Do you see this, or a large amount of this potentially endangered or becoming NPAs because of what's happened?
No, actually, see, the thing is that we do not believe that, a large amount of this amount is likely to be turning into NPA.
Okay.
What has to be understood that India is a power deficit country, and shutting down of power plants due to one reason or the another is not an option. What happens is that post the deallocation, government has already said that they will be reallocating the coal blocks. And
yes, that's fine. We know about the auction process.
Yeah. So a solution is on the way, and we expect that.
But none of those solutions, Ankit, so far have discussed what happens if, let's say, X company that was given a coal block in the last round, and that coal block has been taken away from X company and will be auctioned now, and X company is not able to re-win that coal block or any other coal block in the auction, then what happens to the public sector bank loans extended to X company on the basis of that coal block? That question in itself has not been answered as yet, so that's what I was asking. Do you have any clarity on what happens here on?
See, in the clarity front, the bank's management generally haven't commented, but what will happen is then those power projects will start importing their coal, and probably that will lead to a likely increase in the overall price of production that is there. So it can impact it will definitely impact the earnings of the power plant to that percentage, but due to that, leading the whole power project going into NPA is not a
no, fair enough. I get the point that you're making. Let me take this to Lata as well. Lata, I'm not at all suggesting that all 90,000 crores, is going to become an NPA, and the PSU bank industry is going to fold under that. But what I'm saying is, has the government thought through what happens here on? And if certain loans extended on the basis of the last round of allocation, which was actually poorly done by the government, no fault of either the banks or these companies, so to speak, as yet, how they will deal with the problem that arises from that.
They're not even bothered about it. They can't even capitalize banks. What will they think of these kinds of things? Don't expect support from the government at all on this. I'll only tell you what the exact nature of the problem could be.
Okay.
Of the 96,484 crores, no one knows from where that number has come and what kind of exposures have been counted, indirect exposures. This is just a number in a written reply to the Rajya Sabha. We don't have a background to that.
But we're putting some
specifically asked SBI and PNB, SBI and IDBI, they told us 4,000 crore and 2,000 crore respectively in terms of exposure. But I'll tell you the kind of companies for which the exposure is. One half of the companies are state electricity boards. Arunachal, Andhra Pradesh Mining, Karnataka Power Company, West Bengal Power Development Corporation, Punjab State Electricity Board, Rajasthan State Electricity Board, Madhya Pradesh State Mining. Now, usually these loans are guaranteed by the government, the state government. So when you're calculating stress loans, these are kind of, midway loans. State governments never renege. Usually it is, recast, bailed out. And, this is not the only problem for these SEBs. Their problem is that they don't even hike tariffs. After the elections, they have not hiked. So that half is a separate category by itself. In the other half, there are companies like Jindal, JSPL, like Hindalco, SAIL, all of which are able to pay. They are not the guys who will ever be a bad loan, at least not in the foreseeable future. Not Hindalco, not JSPL, not SAIL. Then there are a certain category of companies which could be, dibbly-dobbly or already NPLs. Like Electro Steel Castings is already a CDR case. Of the others, I don't know. There are names like Sarda Energy, Jaiswal Nico, Usha Martin, Virangana, BLA Industries.
It's tough to assess whether they have the strength to pay back if they don't get, let's say, a coal mine in the auctions.
Yeah, so
and also at what cost they'll get it, right? Because all the costs have moved up now along with the penalties.
There is a guarantee that there will be, the power, if those of these guys who are power related will be given coal at at a lower price, then it will be given to the coal auction reserve price will be lower for power companies. So there will be minor relief over there. But that is the possible stress portion. It is nobody has a number, not Reserve Bank, not the banks themselves.
Okay, so but my point is this: along with rethinking what they will do or how they will reallocate these coal mines, on which they've made some progress and announced draft auction rules, etc. Shouldn't they also be rethinking on how they will help PSU banks rework some of these loans? Because at the end of the day, the PSU banks are definitely not the criminals in any of this, right? Or not to blame for a bad round of allocations.
I would go even further. I think many of the companies who got the coal allocation in 94 were also not frauds. Some of them, at least, that was the only way coal was given. Coal was national property. It was under the Coal Nationalization Act. Nobody else could get the coal, and so they were given. How are they culprits? So this deallocation by the Supreme Court is, in a sense, ham-handed. It's not just the bankers, PSU or private, because private sector also has access, and ICICI have about 5 to 7% exposure to power sector in general, and some of them could be to companies like this. We do not know the exact numbers. They are certainly not the culprits. So in a sense, this is a ham-handed decision by the highest court. But be that as it may, that's something which the system will bear, which is why I think...
But if the government were to blame, as a sovereign power, if the government were to blame for bad allocations in the past, it's the government's job to clean up now, which they're doing on one hand with the draft auctions, but they're not doing with regards to what the potential impact on PSU banks would be. And if they're doing, they haven't yet started talking about it, right? Because so you've got two scenarios here. You've got a bunch of companies that you mentioned that may not have the strongest balance sheets in the world, and if they don't win any coal here on in the auctions, those projects will stand to suffer, and therefore any loans extended to those projects are in jeopardy. The second bit is, even if you do win the coal, it's all coming back to you at a much higher rate. Yeah, justifiably so, but your project, sort of financials have gone for a toss now.
The loans were given
so again, those loans are also in jeopardy. Even if you're a blue chip company, those loans could also be in jeopardy because your coal cost is much higher. Would it be fair to say then that this is just going to add to the NPA problem?
Yeah, for all you know, it already could have added. Definitely it is going to, as the price of coal increases. It's certainly going to add to the NPL issue. Even today we spoke to several bankers, including Pradeep Kumar of SBI. Nobody says that they have peaked out on NPL creation. At least 2 more quarters. All of them want to see how these things pan out. But as our guest is saying, power in a power deficit country, some solution or the other will always be found. So power companies...
Who will pay the price of that solution is the question.
My heart goes out not just to the bankers, but also to some of the companies who are not at fault, because that was the only way coal was given. But be that as it may, there is more stress coming banks' way. It is nowhere near 96,484 crores.
Yeah, of course not.
Number.
That is the exposure number. Yeah,
there is a stress happening because...
Ankit, have you been able to do any of the math on what the potential NPA addition could be, if at all? There could be much smaller numbers, but what could that be?
It's very difficult to pinpoint that, because some of the power projects who have been allocated the money, what will happen is that some of them are operational and they are not based on these coal allocations, but the exposure is to that company. So even if one has an total exposure to the company, one does not understand that how much will be a specific exposure to a power project which was supported by a coal block which was cancelled. So basically the nitty-gritty is obviously the bank do not disclose as such, and total amount is very difficult to total exposure is very difficult to pinpoint by anyone. But as Lata said, I completely agree with the fault. I mean, it has happened before also with the 3G auction, that the banks were not at fault. But finally what happened that, they came out with a ruling, and, in the end somewhere banks had to suffer. So, it has happened before, and, we are seeing that happening again. So,
are you expecting or anticipating sort of not significant addition to NPAs or a significant addition to NPAs? How would you put it up?
No, I do not expect any significant addition to NPAs. There will be some kind of variations. There will be some projects which will be, likely to be slipping into NPA. But overall, their exposure to the banking sector as a whole will, not be much of an impact, because I see a solution whether it may hurt the companies, it may hurt the banks, but a solution will be there that they won't be allowed to, totally shut down and slip into NPAs. That's what I look at.
Okay, fair enough. Lata, let's get the last word from you on this. Significant, insignificant, what are you picking up from the bankers you speak with?
It's not significant, this itself. There'll be about 10 companies which will have a bigger problem. So it's not a very significant. The total amount of coal that came from this allocated mines to the power sector itself is only 7%.
Yeah, I get that. I'm not saying
it's
no,
not a
but I'm just saying
significant.
the numbers in itself.
It's not a significant portion. I don't expect the government to help out in these issues. This will be borne like the telecom pain was borne.
Essentially, it's all borne by depositors, right? At the end of the day,
either depositors or taxpayers.
Yeah, same thing. All right. Thank you very much, Ankit. Thanks very much for that, Lata.